Hi, Alenka. I
Hi,
hope you're doing great.
great Deepshika. I'm just not sure what's happening to my background. Hi, everyone. Great to have you here.
Awesome. So let's get started with our question answers. And we do have a interactive activity coming up right after just in few minutes. So stay tuned for that. But I'll get started with my questions with you, Alenka. So my first question for you is, what role did technology play in improving health education in the work you did during this pandemic?
So thank you so much, Deepshika, and really great to
Yeah.
be here this morning, this afternoon, this evening with everyone. And so we all know that COVID-19, the COVID pandemic, hit every part of the globe and nobody was spared. Specifically, so I work in Nigeria. I'm a public health physician working across different health areas, specifically focusing around social and behavior change. So when the COVID pandemic hit, I was seconded to support the national response and working with we call them the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. And in trying to get everyone on board to communicate effectively, we needed to look at what were our options to communicating, and the normal modus operandi was travel around, get people gathered in one place, and definitely that was not going to be a situation in COVID. So we focused more on using technology. So Zoom became one of our means of communicating, and we did a whole lot of capacity building using Zoom. And it was new learning for everyone. Some trainings we had to have like 3 or 4 concurrent sessions, having a group of facilitators so that we could get the different parts of the country prepared for the response. We use Zoom to educate all the health educators across the state. We used it to engage traditional leaders, religious leaders. We worked a lot with the media also using Zoom. We used it for experience sharing. We even had sessions whereby we were speaking with COVID survivors to be able to share their experience. Another communication platform we used very well was also the phones. We used what we call an interactive voice response, IVRs. So we developed what we call a mobile curriculum. And so we work in the communities. We have volunteers that go house to house to educate people. And we needed them to understand the risk of doing such activities in the midst of COVID, and also making sure they protect themselves. So we rapidly developed what we call a mobile curriculum, whereby we had modules of the health education in spoken in local languages. So we then what we did was record those messages or the communication materials in the different languages. And the use of mobile phone is something that is readily available. And that was used to, so whatever type of phone you had, you didn't have to have a smartphone, but all you had to do was to be able to dedicate like 5 minutes a day to listen. So we asked them to pick what time of the day the phone calls to come in. You didn't have to pay for it. And then you get a call at that time of the day, you listen to your session, you answer the question. So we made it also interactive, engaging, or press 1 if you agree, press 2, what would you do next? And we were able to use that to reach over 3,000 community volunteers that were supporting the work we do. So that was those are some of the ways we communicated or educated during the COVID pandemic.
Oh my God, that was so impressive to hear that. And especially IVRs, that's such a great way to reach a mass audience. And I really love the interactive approach that was there, as well as the Zoom, even connecting with the survivors through Zoom. Sounds very interesting. All right, everybody. So we will continue with the questions in a bit, but for now we have questions for the audience. So now that you've heard of the platforms that were used in Nigeria to handle the pandemic, uh, we have some questions for you on Mentimeter that would where we would like to hear your responses on how you would have reacted. We can go to our first question. Yeah. So everyone, we are just waiting for the Mentimeter screen to show. Yeah. So your question basically is, if let's assume there was a outbreak in your country and there's an announcement of the lockdown, and then if that happens, put yourself in that situation, and then what would be your first reaction? How will you communicate this info with your family, friends, or community? So basically, which social platform would you use to communicate your responses? Uh, uh-huh. Kind of expected. We're leaning towards WhatsApp. Uh, but interestingly, there are two Telegram, which I didn't expect uh, that much. And Facebook and Instagram are not there at all. Instagram is there. Two Instagram, and yep, yep. It's leaning more towards WhatsApp. But yeah, it was surprising that Facebook is not there at all. Zoom,
Yeah.
no. Yeah. Okay, and we have the second question, two more questions in Mentimeter after this. So now that we've looked at the platform that you'll use, uh, we have two other questions in terms of how you may react to to a pandemic or a news around that. So I hope the Mentimeter screen will be up again. All right, so the question is, who should be educated about health? Yeah, yes. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. So Olenka will add more to it in a bit. Yeah, because at the moment the answer seems kind of obvious, like, yeah, of course, everybody. But we'll feed
Yeah.
into this in a bit. Yeah. And then the third question, if you can go, okay, all right. Once the screen goes to the next question, what was the most challenging situation for you as a caregiver and an educator during this period? So think back to the pandemic, lockdown time, and think back to how that situation, uh, what role did you play? If you had to take care of somebody as a caregiver, how did it look like? And as an educator, what was the role that you played? Um, so what was really most challenging for you during that time? Yeah, dealing with uncertainty, of course, yes. Food supplies, yes. Oh yeah, stress, having factual check of the news. Yeah. Oh yes, the misinformation, disinformation pandemic. Basically, you don't know what to trust. I think that's a great point as well. Yeah, Zoom fatigue. Yeah, how to reach children to ensure they learn through the digital divide. Yes. Being able to attend to the students at the same time, online teaching. Yes. Um, yeah, the how to reach out to students online in equally and make equally the big impact. providing food. Food has appeared twice, right? Trying to keep myself healthy while caring for someone affected. Yeah, as a caregiver, that's so big, right? Sensory awareness and physical experience to children, giving sensory awareness. Yes, all of that. How do you communicate through digital? Again, a common theme that's coming up. Unable to meet family and all, right? The loneliness and the yeah, that was so huge. That was such a big emotion back then. Uncertainty is again coming up. Tre- Treating like a family will be more nice. As a caregiver, the challenge was to keep myself and everyone in the family safe. Meals, stress, emotional connect too. As an educator, stress and students, yes, some things to handle. Yep. All right. So, Alanka, I hand it over to you in terms of what you would like to share given the responses.
Uh-huh. So thank you so much, everyone. I think really great response. And truly, when we talk about who do we need to speak to about health, it's really everyone. But the challenge remains that we focus at a certain level and really find it difficult to get to everyone. And in getting to everyone, we need to understand everyone's uniqueness, their the right communication channel, the right communicator, the content, and the context. So yes, everyone is important for health education, and no one should be left behind. Let's take the COVID pandemic or the current COVID situation. And can you hear me? I'm seeing my internet is unstable. Okay,
Yes,
great.
yes.
Okay, so one of the public health social measures is wash your hands. Deepshika, I can't wash your hands for you. You
Yeah,
need to wash your hands yourself.
yeah.
So you get why everyone needs to be involved in health education. And so everyone has a role to play. And when we look at what we call the socio-ecological model, at the center remains the individual. But we do understand that there are other people that surrounds the individual, and we need to find ways to communicate to the people that surround the individual before you can get to the individual. So you look at family, friends, you look at the communities, you look at the policy makers. They are all different layers of communication. But when we start with health communication, we start at the top. So we're focused on the policies, and before, by the time you get to the individual, maybe there's limited resources to actually get to the individual. I'm looking at a health education whereby the focus starts more on the individual, and that really shows that we need to involve the education sector. The schools need to be an integral part of health education and health communication. We focus more on our traditional religious leaders, the policymakers, and forget the educators themselves, the people within the structured educational system, as a key influencer when it comes to health education. So really great responses from everyone in terms of who do we want to communicate to. And of course, the COVID pandemic, we're still in the pandemic, it's not gone, but we were in critical phases some months back, especially in India, especially across the world, in different places, lockdown, in different places. It was really devastating, and I really feel sad on some of the things that happened in India, especially, and the loss of lives that's happened and how it has taken a toll on everyone. And for me, I think my most challenging situation during the COVID pandemic was deciding either to be a mom or to be a public health professional.
Right.
At the onset, it was a tough decision. Yes, there was a lockdown, but as someone that had with public health experience and supporting the national response, I did get a pass, so I could walk around or do my job or be there at the response center, the emergency operations center. And in the same vein, schools had to shut down, and we moved to kind of like online schools. And I had a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they expected to sit down for an hour or 3 hours to be on Zoom or Google Meet. And please tell me what a 4-year-old could actually assimilate without you as a parent providing that guidance. And it was really a tough choice between, do I contribute to saving the country or focus on sitting down, providing that one-on-one mentoring for my child to be able to participate in the online school. It was a tough choice. I tried in my own best. Get a new computer, get a new table, and there's no way a 4-year-old will sit down, or a 6-year-old, and you enter some of those classes and everybody is making noise. And it was also new technology for the teachers, where to mute, how to tell people to control. It was a mess. And so I had to withdraw my kids from school, online school or anything, because there was no way I could combine it all. I was focused on contributing my quota to saving the country in terms of who do we need to talk to, how do we need to communicate, what needs to be done. And it was a tough choice in being there as a parent or being there as a public health responder. And it was really a formative year for my son. And by the time things eased up, schools came back. And I feel like a lot of children within that foundation year, moving from a nursery, I don't know how the education system runs, to the primary year, a lot of them they really lost out on the education. I'm afraid by the time school opened, my son that I expected when my daughter was that age could read, and he can't read, and joining words, because they were joining words then. And we're picking up gradually from where we were last year, and catching up. But I think majority of us as parents needed to make some choices during that period. Might be the best, might not have been best, but it was a tough choice for me, but happy to have been able to move forward from there.
Yeah. That was really great to hear about the tough choices you made, and my best wishes to the kids who are going through this. So yeah. All right, Alenka. So it has been such a pleasure talking to you. We have come to the close of it. So I'll have my last question for you, and we will wrap up with that. And my question for you is, so what are some recommendations that you have for governments, international bodies to strengthen the infrastructure to be better prepared for situations like this?
First on my mind would definitely be flexibility in the educational system that allows for continued learning. So education, health infrastructure really, it has to start from within the education system. Like I said, if we take COVID, and one of the key messages is wash your hands, and we were taught, 5 times, or when you eat, when you do this, and we all know that alone, that single washing hands can prevent diseases. To what extent can we really imbibe more of health education mainstream it into the full education, into the educational sector? 2, we have to be prepared for any health emergency. So health infrastructure cuts across different areas. It's really a big scope, so I'm not going to go there. But what I would say in terms of this is that in terms of preparedness and health education, the preparedness starts before something like a pandemic. So you've been communicating effectively, you've been meeting people, you've been understanding their needs, and so that becomes a critical step to take. Then we need to look at ensuring that we're exploring different communication channels, including edutainment, infotainment, in whatever we're doing. And lastly, nothing should ever stop the opportunity to learn, educate, or communicate. We should make sure that that opportunity is always there. The only thing we need to make sure we're doing it safely and in a way that matches your audience. So I'm really grateful for the kind of approach Silora is taking, and making education fun, making education inclusive, making education more on, you understand, the child, the individual child itself, like unlike the didactic or current approach that we have that is just a one system, but education can be reimagined for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alenka. Thank you, and thank you for that very powerful message. Over to you, MC.
So, questions, we will open the floor for questions now. You can post the questions in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and we will unmute you. Okay, so I see a few questions. So the first one is from Fatima Taskeen. In India, we have primary healthcare centers called Anganwadis, which also serve as the early education centers. What are some tips for educators come caregivers in building a stronger foundation for health ed?
Alenka, are you? Yeah.
couldn't.
Olenka, did you get the question? Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I got the question. I couldn't
Okay.
unmute myself.
Okay, sure.
That's really great question, Fatima. And we do have the primary health centers too in Nigeria, so I can relate with this. The primary health centers really provides an opportunity for health education. And so what would be some of my tips for the educators? One thing is use an integrated approach. So what we currently see is most primary health centers focus on only messages around maybe ANC or counseling for family planning. Again, I'm looking at the context in Nigeria, but every caregiver that comes to a facility or to the hospital or to a health center, there's always an opportunity to educate or provide messages. So either making sure that the health centers have communication materials that speak to the audience. If the healthcare workers do not have such a time to provide this, but for every caregiver that comes to the hospital or to the health center, it's an opportunity to educate. So look at an integrated approach. Look at making sure that you have communication materials that speak to the audience. So it could be posters, it could be radios, or something that is playing that helps the client to be entertained while waiting to have the service, and it could be the health talks themselves by the care providers.
Okay, that was a very insightful answer. I hope that answers your question, Fatima. We will take one more question. This is an interesting one from Shabazz. What does a fully health-aware world look like to you?
Thanks, Shabazz. And for me, it's improved health literacy, where health ignorance is not even something up for discussion. So when you look at the definition of health literacy, it's really about the ability and or capacity to find, understand, and easily use health information and services to make informed decisions and take informed actions. If everyone could really take their time to understand that health information or health service, then make an informed decision or take an informed action. So you have a headache or you're feeling something, the next thing should be to go or get proper counsel and not maybe kind of like stuck on the internet and getting that kind of information. And so there's a whole lot of misinformation, disinformation going on. but to the extent that you are able to sieve what is misinformation and disinformation, and to the extent that you're able to understand what is being communicated, improved health literacy will be what a fully aware world will look like to me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your responses. And yeah, so I guess with this, we come to the end of this session. And I would really like to thank you, Dr. Olenka and Deepshika, for this wonderful session. It was really informative, and I learned a lot listening to it. And I'm sure the audience also related on multiple fronts and had a really great time. So thank you once again. So we will be moving on now from the fireside chat.